The D-Lux is the smallest compact camera available from Leica. On this year's release, they changed the design to, let's say, a Mini Q. The D-Lux is about 25% of the cost of a Q3. But remember, they do not share the same sensor size. Still, I thought it would make sense to compare them. I will first talk about the design, the body, the buttons and the handling. Later in the video I will compare some shots. Okay, let's start with size. The D-Lux is about 20% smaller, 15 to 20%. If you put them on top of each other, you can see that especially the lens size on the Q, we can take away the lens hood and then compare it again, and we still can see it's about twice the size. Of course, when we turn it on, then it comes out, but to transport, it is of course much more compact. When we look at the back, we can see that from a design point of view, they are similar. Of course, on the Q3, we can tilt the monitor, which we cannot do on the D-Lux 8. Let's look at the buttons. This is also very similar. We have the menu button, we have the joystick ring button, we have the play button. We have the two buttons here. We have here the button for the diopter. In the Q3, we have to take it out here. On top, it also looks the same. We have the shutter speed on both sides. And here, of course, we have the zoom and the power button. We don't have a power button on the Q3 because, of course, we turn on the power here. The D-Lux has additional buttons on the lens. We can here change the aspect ratio, 3:2, 16:9, 1:1, and 4:3. We have also here on the side a button for the autofocus and manual focus settings. We have the autofocus, we have the macro autofocus, and we have the manual focus. If we are set onto manual focus, we have here the focus ring, and we have here the aperture ring, which we can turn until A, and then the aperture is going to be automatic. It's basically the same with the Q3. We have the aperture ring here, which we can turn, and we can also lock into A. We have here the focus ring, which we can do just manually, and then we just snap it into autofocus, and this is basically the same if we would put it here on autofocus. We also have a macro mode, which we turn here, and then of course if you are set into autofocus, it is automatically on autofocus for macro. There is no special setting to do there. Let's talk about the connections. Also similar, on the Q3 we have an HDMI and a USB-C, and also on the D-Lux we have a USB-C and a HDMI. Let's look at the weight of the cameras. The D-Lux comes in just under 400 grams. I don't have the lens hood on, but the battery is in there and the SIM card is in there. And the Q3, almost double the weight. Let's talk about the lens. We have on the Q3, of course, the famous 28mm Summilux 1.7 lens, which is a fantastic lens. I did a video especially about that lens. If you're interested in that, check it out. I have a link in the description. We have on the D-Lux 8 a zoom lens, which is a DC Vario Summilux 1.7 to 2.8, 10.9 to 34mm ASPH Summilux lens. This is of course a lens for a micro four third sensor. So this focal length is an equivalent of 24 to 75mm if we would compare it to a full frame camera. Probably the most important thing inside of the camera, the sensor. In the Q3, we have a 60 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, and in the D-Lux 8, we have a 22 megapixel micro four third CMOS sensor. The file size they produce if you shoot DNG are with the Q3 about 70 to 80 megabytes, and with the D-Lux 8 about 27 to 30 megabytes. Next, Leica Lux. This one is actually a little bit a weird one. If you check out the Leica Photos app, we have up here in the left corner, we have these double circles. If we press that, we come into Leica Lux. And we can see that we still are only having the Leica Lux for the SL3 and the Q3. And I don't actually get that, because the Leica Lux, what are they doing? They are basically a color profile that is baked into JPEG pictures. So if you shoot JPEGs, and if you have one of those Leica Lux installed and use them, it will be baked into your JPEG. If you shoot DNG, It's not gonna do anything. It's only gonna do something to the preview picture that is within the DNG. But once you start edit your DNG, it goes away. So this is a JPEG only feature. And why do I think it's weird? Because if you are having a Q3, and especially if you are having an SL3, I'm pretty sure you're gonna shoot RAW. So the looks are no use to you. If you're using a camera like the D-Lux 8, I see more a use case there, because you probably don't want to edit your pictures. You have a little small camera, you're going to go and shoot stuff, and you just maybe you want to immediately post that. You are not interested in editing them, so it would make sense to have it on a camera like the D-Lux 8. And if they actually target the Fuji users with that feature, I don't see why they didn't put it in the D-Lux 8. The only thing that can be is that the D-Lux 8, because it's an old sensor, and I don't know what kind of processor is in that camera, maybe it is actually a hardware problem. But again, you have the traditional film styles integrated in the D-Lux 8. If it's not a hardware problem, I'm pretty sure and I hope they will integrate it in a future firmware update. Full disclosure here, this is my Q3. I own it, I love it. I do not own the D-Lux 8. I got it as a loaner from Alexander Görlitz from Photo Görlitz, and I already made a video about my first day with it. After you finish this video, check out that video or Alexander's website. I have links in the description for both. When I did this initial shooting, I had my Q3 with me. I prepared a few shots to compare, and I like to look at them with you now. We have here the D-Lux shot and we have here the Q shot. So if you put them next to each other and we, for example, look at the umbrella here we can immediately see that, of course, the sensor is bigger in the Q camera. I want to check out the dynamic range. So first on the D-Lux shot, let's bring down the highlights and see what we can retrieve here from the sky. There's a lot. And if we do the same here and we compare them now, again, we have the D-Lux on the left side. D-Lux is with ISO 200. We strangely have not the same white balance. Let's compare 51. That's different. So now we have the same white balance value. It's very weird. So with the absolute same settings, we are getting a completely different color, which is actually very surprising. The Q is colder, you can see it in the floor, so the lens renders differently. Let's check if this is on another shot as well. If you, for example, take the KaDeWe, the very famous Berlin shopping mall, if we do 5.6, and here we use 0, or we do 20, and then also here we do 5.6, and we do 20. If I go back and forth, very weird. And again, we can see the difference of the sensor size. And this, of course, is where the Q shines. It's absolutely phenomenal sharp. They're now edited completely the same, and this just a different picture. It's very strange. Maybe if you have an answer why that is, maybe put it in the comments that I can learn something. It's very strange for me, because now it looks, when I do the editing, it looks like the Q is colder and the D-Lux is warmer. You can see in the sky, it's completely looking different. How about we just say automatic white balance? So we can see completely different values, but now it looks similar. Total different color rendering, which actually surprises me that it is that much. But I never, to be honest, did a comparison of two different camera bodies this way. So maybe this is a common thing. Again, if you know more about that, please put it in the comments. I want to learn. This shot I also showed in my initial video of the D-Lux 8. I did it not because it's a beautiful picture. I did it because you have different light situations here. We have on the right side here overblown highlights. On the left side, you have still visible darks. So let's bring down the highlights and push the shadows and maybe push overall the picture a little bit more contrast. And then we do the same for the D-Lux picture. It's not the same white balance again, but I tried to match it. Okay, we have now an almost similar edit. It's a little bit more saturation. Again, I cannot match those. So you can see overall that the Q has a little bit better results than the D-Lux 8. Let's check out the darker parts. I don't know if you see that on YouTube. So you have less noise with the Q than the D-Lux. Then we have here a night shot, a window shot of a shop, of an interior shop. We can see again that we don't have the same values on the white balance, but it matched it so kind of. And we can now see where the Q shines, of course, with the 1.7 here. The separation from the foreground to the background, it's much stronger than with the D-Lux, which of course has a 1.8. Both have a 1.8 now, but I think, of course, here is really where the Q shines. And here also we can see we have an ISO of 800. We have here an ISO of 500, but I can see clear noise here in the whites. I can see a little bit of noise, but that's basically nothing. I think here is where you see the difference in price. You have this very rich picture with a very beautiful separation of foreground and background, and you have here a little bit the result of a smaller sensor and the not as high value lens, but still it's a good lens. We can also see here the bokeh of this little dot, where we have here a little like a flare, and this is much more, it's just more beautiful. Then let's check out a macro shot. Unfortunately, also not exactly the same focal length or the same distance. Of course, if we zoom in on that screw, we can see the difference in the sensor sizes. But again, D-Lux is a very capable macro camera. If we check out the background, of course, it's more blurry in the Q because we have, of course, we have a 2.8 here as well. And here we have a 1.8, and still the Q shines, in my opinion. Here probably is where the money is. Sensor and the lens. Let's check out one more night shot. Again, out of the camera, it's very weird that we have completely different colors. So I had it all on automatic, the white balance, and the camera's giving me completely different. And I'm especially surprised about the Q. I mean, the light is white, but the Kurfürstendamm sign here is a little bit purplish. And here it's much more neutral, but the light here is a little bit greenish. So maybe if we do again put the white balance with the automatic, say this is white, and I again say this is white, do we get a similar picture? Yeah, that looks much closer. And we are on an ISO 4000 and an ISO 3200, and I have, here you see it totally different. We have, of course, again, the light here, the bokeh, it's much more separated and worked out better in the Q. Let me work a little bit on the picture itself and bring up here. We have similar edited pictures, which are a little bit overblown here on the left side, of course, but it is interesting to see how the camera behaves. We have much more noise here in the D-Lux 8, and we have also the light flare is handled completely differently. This probably has to do with the zoom lens. I think that's much better on a fixed lens every time. So I did not have my SL with me to make a comparison picture with an SL zoom lens. But I would say this has to do with the zoom lens. But hey, it would be very weird if the Q would not be superior in those kind of situations because you pay that much more money. To summarize this comparison, let's talk about the pros on the D-Lux 8. I totally love the size and the weight, the handling. I love the zoom lens. I was mostly shooting in 75 and I did not do the comparison shots. I really love to have this possibility to just zoom, and I always love telephoto lenses, so this is a total pro on the D-Lux 8. The Q, of course, the pros on the Q are massive. The sensor, the dynamic range, the sharpness of the lens, it's just another world. So there is, for me now, not a question why the Q3 is like 4 times the price of the D-Lux 8, because I think the results you get out of it is really 4 times better. But in the end, it's a question of what is your expectation? What is your level of standard? What do you expect from the camera? Are you really into that pixel peeping sharpness thing that like guys like me are? Or do you say, I just want to have a nice camera with me that makes beautiful shots. I will not zoom in 400% and I will not make prints that are 2 meters wide. Then I'm pretty sure with the D-Lux 8, you're going to be pretty happy. I'm for the moment going to stick with the Q3. Of course, I have the luxury that I also own an M system and an SL system. So it is, of course, bulkier, heavier, but in the end, the result that comes out of it, it's just the thing I cherish a lot and I treasure. And I think on the long run, if I would shoot all day, every time with the D-Lux 8, I will probably not be that happy. But again, this does not diminish the D-Lux 8. It's a difference of preferences. So you definitely are not doing anything wrong if you decide for a Q3, and you will not do anything wrong if you decide for a D-Lux 8, as long as you honor your preferences. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button. Do not miss future Leica content. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I try to answer everything. If you're interested in my first day with the Leica D-Lux 8, check out this video. If you want to know more about the Leica Q fascination, check out this video. See you there or in the next one. Until then, stay curious.